want to break out, batter down the door, go tramping black heather all day on the windy moor, and at night in hayloft or under hedge find a companion suited to my mind. I want to break through, shatter time and space, cut up the void with a knife, pitch the stars from their place, nor shrink back when, lidded with darkness, the eye of reality opens and blinds me, blue as the sky. Okay. So that's a poem by Bhante Sangharakshita, the founder of this movement, our teacher for those of us who are ordained, and who, as well as writing many books on Buddhism and many articles on Buddhism, also wrote many, many poems, and that's one of them. And I really like it. And I really, when I was thinking about this evening, I thought I'd like to explore this theme of letting go, or you could equally say of breaking out, by using this poem. So that's what we're going to do tonight. And it's quite handy actually, because the poem's in 2 verses and the evening's kind of in 2 halves. I want to talk for a bit, and then we're going to meditate a little bit more, and then we're going to have tea, and then I'll talk some more, and then we'll meditate some more, and then that'll be the end. It's great to hear and see that so many people are doing the meditation challenge. I can see that some of you who are doing it are not new to meditation, but many of you possibly are new to meditation, or at least new to meditation in this context. And I'll say a bit more about that in the talk. So I know that you've already in this meditation challenge been looking at the great themes of, first of all, integration, where Maitreya Bandha really talked about how divided we are. He talked about it both horizontally and vertically, didn't we? And we're trying to become more and more of a whole person. And then the next great theme of positive emotion, or you could say skillful intention, how our actions will shape our own lives and mind, but also shape the world we live in. And what I'm imagining, I partly imagine it because this is what happened with me when I learned to meditate, is what I'm imagining is that if you have really been doing this challenge and meditating every day, it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because meditation does bring us more, more calm and positivity and all that. It's not that it doesn't do that, but also if you really do it, has anybody experienced a sort of, what I call to myself a sort of positive unrest? Has anybody felt that actually the sort of stirrings of forces that you didn't know about before? Or was that just me? Do people know what I mean when I say that? I remember when I first started to meditate, I just thought, what's happening, I felt the range of my emotions vastly increased. I felt like, in retrospect, I'd been going around with blinkers on like this, and suddenly, when I was happy, I felt much happier. When I was sad, I felt much sadder, and sometimes I just felt a bit like my mind's exploding, like somebody's taken the lid off Pandora's box or something. Has anybody had anything like that? But that is a positive sign. It's it's a bit disturbing, but I just wanted to affirm that. And there's not time to ask every single person what's been happening, but that happens when we meditate as well. And I hope that the talk might address that somehow, or even if it doesn't, at least I want to say at the beginning that that's a sign that something's working, that some stirrings are happening that we might not have expected. If we thought, oh yeah, meditation is going to make me all this quiet, calm person, it doesn't always. It sort of does, but maybe not in the way we expected. Anyway, so hopefully that's what you've been doing, meditating, looking, exploring in your mind these themes of integration and positive emotion. And now this week, we're going on to something new, which is, well, we called it letting go, and I'm also saying you could equally think of it in terms as breaking out. Sometimes one metaphor will work better than others. So what are we breaking out of, or what are we letting go of, is the question. And I'm going to be looking at that in increasing depth in the evening. But what I really want to talk about in this first half is that what we're breaking out of, here's Bhante saying, I want to break out, is habit, is our habitual way of being. And now here's something that is very very interesting from the start, and I wish we had time. I wish we had just time to discuss all these things, but I'll just press on, and you can talk to me in the tea break about them. But from a Buddhist point of view, it's not that I'm a person that's got some habits. It's we are our habits, and we are our habits because we are our actions. Already this is getting me quite deep into the Dharma. It's not that there's a real me with some actions added on. My Tribanda talked about this in week 1, didn't he? We've got some actions that we think, oh yeah, that's me, and some that we think are aberrations of the real me. But actually it's not like that at all. There only is action, and because most of the time that action is habitual, there only is habit, So we are our habits. So this is then really, really important, if we are our habits. So, just to elaborate on this a bit, this is straight from Bhante, the next bit I'm going to say. He says that the person we think of as Maitrinara, but Bhante didn't say Maitrinara, but say the person we think of as Maitrinara or Subhadramati or Anna or Bex, he said that is just a habit that a certain stream of consciousness has gotten into, a bit like a knot tied in a piece of string. That's not very flattering. But I hope that illustrates something. God, I feel I'm in deep water already. I mean sort of philosophically deep water. Do you see what I mean? There's no real me apart from the habits, Does that make sense so far? Anyway, hope so. But this is the great message of the Dharma. We don't have to be like that. We couldn't be creative rather than habitual. Those of you who been practicing for a longer time and who know Bhante Sangharaj's teaching will be very, very familiar with this notion, this way of framing the Dharma life as moving from habitual action to creative action. And so if you're new to it, then I think this is quite exciting. If you're familiar with it, I think it's still exciting because it really is everything. If we could get this, we could really get everything. Now, when I say creative here, I just want to define this a little bit. I don't mean like artistically creative necessarily. It could include that. I mean basically the opposite of habitual, The opposite of habitual. So habitual action, well, we all know what that is action that's just, just repeating itself again and again. And it's a dangerous place to be, because the more we do it, the harder it is to change it. Again, we know that, don't we? And the image here is like a wheel that is digging ruts, yeah? The more you do the same old, the more you become that person who is likely to do that in the future. It becomes harder and harder the more you do it, the older you get and so on, to break out of it. So this is why it's so important to try and bring awareness to what we do, and try and bring some sort of creativity, and realise that we have a choice and that we can change, and that is very, very important. And it doesn't just affect our inner world. We sort of shape our world like that. You know that feeling of, you just feel, how have I got here again? Gosh, how come this relationship just seems to be turning out the same as the last one? That kind of thing. How come this job seems to be turning out the same as the last one? We're shaping our lives, and we're shaping the way we view the world, but strangely how the way the world views us by our habitual action. So we're the primary thing to begin with that we're trying to break out of, let go of, is habitual action. Now, it's not easy. It's not easy to do this, and one of the reasons for this, quite a strong reason for this, is, it sounds a bit blunt to say other people, but it kind of is other people. It's who we associate with make it more or less easy to break out of habitual action. And I can't resist talking about the Bob Dylan film, partly because I'm really, really proud to have seen it, because I live in this really remote Welsh village. And I managed to see it on the second night that it came out. Has anyone seen it? Yeah. Few people? Maybe you don't. Well, I thought everyone did. Because we live in London. Maybe this analogy isn't going to work if the film isn't so interesting to people. But anyway, Bob Dylan, creative person, what happens in his life, not just the story, is there's this, and this is what the film's concentrating on. He's this great folk musician, and then he decides to play an electric guitar, and everybody who previously were his great fans and great advocates and mentors, they go crazy. They're like really, really angry with him, because he's sort of betrayed the cause of folk music by going electric. It's a true story of his life, but it's a sort of archetypal story, isn't it, as well, that you want somebody to be creative, and you're their fan in this case, but then when they do something that is actually creative, like, you don't just do the same old thing, everybody gets really angry with you. So it's writ large in the case of, somebody who's a, famous musician, but we experience that in our lives. Probably experience it on both ends. We experience when people seem threatened by if we start to make changes. Like, I don't know, like all the classic things. Maybe since you've started meditating, you've decided to cut down or even stop alcohol or change your diet to be vegetarian or something like that. And then, has anybody experienced people then reacting to that, or people not sure what to make of you anymore when you change like that? Is that, I don't know if that's a thing, but and then there can be deeper examples of that. So that's what I mean when I say it's very hard. It's hard to change, and then the people we're with can make that more or less hard. Most people we're often invested in our idea of someone, in sort of who they were almost, rather than who they are and an unfolding person. And well, you've got the Bob Dylan story, which is kind of interesting me. You've got it very classically in the Buddhist tradition itself. In the life story of the Buddha. So you might know that story very well, or it might be new to you. So what it is when the Buddha, before the Buddha's a Buddha, he's born son of a nobleman in northern India, who keeps him completely sheltered. Keeps him in this palace. He's got different palaces for different seasons, so he never has to experience the vagrancies of the weather. He never has to experience any discomfort. His father is trying to stop him experiencing anything that will cause him, that will be the grit and the oyster that causes him to, embark on a spiritual search, because it's been predicted at the Buddha to be's birth that he's going to be either a great ruler or a great spiritual seeker. And his father, who's a king, obviously wants him to be the great ruler and not to be the spiritual seeker. So he thinks he can do that by protecting him from any painful experience, because it's often painful experience that sort of prods us into a spiritual search. So again, it's this is an archetypal story of someone trying to constrain this young man who's going to be the Buddha by giving him what looks like a palace, but the palace actually is a prison. So again, you can, where am I going with this? You can look at it metaphorically to see that if people don't allow us to change, or we don't allow them to change, we're imprisoning them. We're imprisoning them. That's the point I'm making. So if we want to be free from our habitual self, we're going to have to really look at that. We're going to have to really look at, who are we? I'm hesitating to say this because it sounds a bit sort of bold, but who are we keeping company with? And I'm not now saying we've got to shun all our previous friends, and only have Buddhist friends or something like that. But what I'm saying is we've got to look at, where are the people that we're spending time with? Is the influence of the people habit reinforcing or creativity enhancing? That's the question, I think. It's quite a serious question, isn't it? But it's quite a disturbing question, possibly. I'm feeling the weight of it as I'm saying it here. Is the company we're keeping, is it holding us back? Are the people we're spending time with wanting us to say the same, or are they encouraging us to grow and change? This is quite an important question. And how are we in relation to that? I mean, because the truth is, nobody can actually stop us changing. So maybe a more subtle way of putting this question, rather than the rather bold one about the company we keep, is how can we free ourselves from the sort of habit reinforcing influence of the group, as it were, the group being the people we spend time with. How can we free ourselves from the habit reinforcing influence of that? Because it probably is there, it probably is there. Anyway, sorry, I hope that's not too sort of weighty to kind of, seems quite a weighty thing. But is that giving you something to think about or something? Anyway, I'm going to move on to the next line of the poem. So we've got this poem that goes, I want to break out batter down the door, yeah? I've thought this was quite surprising, isn't it, for a Buddhist to be writing, batter down the door. I want to break out, batter down the door. It's very, very forceful, isn't it? It's very, very, perhaps not like our image, again, of Buddhism is going to make us all kind of calm and quiet and, so on. You've got this image of very, very forceful, yeah? And I think this is very important, that actually Buddhism isn't a philosophy of sort of quietude. We're not just trying to quieten ourselves down. Again, going back to the talk on a few weeks ago by Maitreya Bandhu, which I listened to, he was talking about most of the time our attention's divided and unintegrated. In other words, we're only half doing things, or a quarter doing things, or a tenth doing things, yeah? If we're divided, we actually, can't batter down the door, we can maybe lightly kind of, give it a little half-hearted poke or something like that. But when we've got our whole being with us, then there's a force to that, yeah? There's a force to that. And we need that. If we're going to break out of our habitual way of being that's just driving us round and round and the same old, we need our whole force behind us, yeah? And I think that, that's what that word speaks of to me. That's what this sort of battering speaks of. Like, the only person that can do that is somebody that has got their whole weight of themselves behind themselves, yeah. So that's what we're aiming for, and becoming more integrated. That the whole weight of ourselves is behind ourselves. It very much ties in, it basically ties in with commitment, doesn't it? It ties in with things like this meditation challenge. You just decide, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put myself behind it. And even when the going gets tough, I'm going to keep with it, yeah. And of course, that will surface resistance and so on. The very act of commitment will bring resistance to the surface, but the important thing is not to be put off by that, or not to think that means that something's gone wrong. In fact, it probably means that something's gone right, yeah? So I want to break out, batter down the door, go tramping black heather all day on the windy moor. Yeah, and then sleep in a hayloft, and at night sleep in a hayloft or under a hedge. So this is rather romantic, it has to be admitted, this windy moor and the hayloft and the hedge. At the same time, if we sort of forgive, as it were, the romance of it, I think it really is speaking. It's Bantu saying, I don't want to be conventional, I don't want to sleep in a house with a bed and do all these things. I want to go a bit wild, yeah? I don't want to be conventional. So this is another thing that I think we need to break free of, break out of, let go of, whatever metaphor we use. A tendency, maybe we don't think of ourselves as conventional, and it certainly doesn't mean being unconventional in a self-conscious way, but what it really means is breaking out or breaking free of needing approval or wanting approval, which is very, very hard, isn't it? Very, very hard to not want to not really care about what people think about you, to not be governed by, are people going to approve of this, are people going to like me, and at the same time not just flip to the sort of, I'll just be a rebel and I won't care, which actually, without much examination, you can see is just the same thing the other way around. To be really free means not be a rebel for being a rebel's sake, but not to be an approval seeker. Yeah, it's very, very hard to do that. Our need for approval and our need to kind of get it right, you know, whatever getting it right means, I think is, well, certainly in my own experience, runs deeper than, well, certainly in my own life than I thought it did. You know, it trips you up. You know, I know it goes deep because I think, oh yeah, I've been practicing all this time. I'm surely a bit free of this, and I certainly am freer than I used to be. But still, you still feel it trips you up. Yeah, it trips you up. I don't want to make a mistake. You know, I don't want to get it wrong. I don't want people to. I care what people think about me. So this kind of being all night on the windy moor, I think, is a metaphor for like breaking out of being governed by people's approval, or in a sense being governed by people's disapproval, which is the same thing. Yeah. So how are we going to do this? How are we going to break free of these two things I mentioned so far? Our own habitual action and being governed by what people think. So I'm going to give us two ways of doing that, and then we're going to have another little meditation. So the way of, one very good way of breaking free of what people think of us is going on retreat. Especially, well, if you haven't been on retreat at all, go on your first retreat, which I think is coming up quite soon. If you have been on quite a few retreats, then go on solitary retreat. So that's something, you know, I've done a lot. My Trinara, the other people that have been practicing for many years will do usually every year, because on a solitary retreat is like basically what it says on the tin. It is a retreat where you go completely on your own, and there's many, many good things about that. Well, one, I find it actually very, very enjoyable. But it's not just about being enjoyable, although that's an important thing. One of the things it does is it takes away any sort of external pressures or perceived external pressures, because like there's literally no one there. Yeah. So basically no one can see if you're meditating or not. You've turned, you know, oh yeah, because you've turned your whole, you know, insight timer in the brain off, you know, where you're sort of trying to clock up how many hours you're meditating. Nobody can see, and also, sort of quite frankly, as it were, nobody cares, you know. Of course, sometimes it can be quite surprising, even when you go on solitary retreat, and I don't know if the others experience this. Sometimes, as it were, you take people with you in your mind anyway, and you kind of think, oh no, I haven't meditated enough, I've meditated too much, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, no one can see and no one actually cares. No one would care if you didn't meditate at all for the whole 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or however long it was. You're not doing it. There's no you know, you're not doing it so that people can see. You know that, or does anybody ever catch themselves doing that awful thing where you kind of you do a little good thing, but you like, you know, you secretly hope someone notices you're doing it. Your love is, you know, but actually no one's going to know. So what that means, is then if you do find yourself meditating on your solitary retreat, you're doing it because you really want to do it. Yeah, you can trust that more deeply. I'm doing it because I really want to do it, because nobody knows, nobody cares. I'm doing it because I'm doing it, yeah? So this is the practice of going on solitary retreat, especially if you've been on other previous retreats, is very, very good for this breaking free from that need of of approval, that need for people to be validating you. There's nobody there to validate you or invalidate you or anything you. It's just you, you know. And then the practice that involves other people, the clue here is in the poem. So here he is, tramping black heather all day on the windy moor, and at night in a hayloft or under hedge, find a companion suited to my mind, yeah? So who is this, yeah? Who is the companion suited to our mind, yeah? This is quite a good question to ask yourself. And I was reflecting on this, and you know, we say this phrase, you know, like-minded people, whatever, but what does that really mean? I don't think it really means, I don't think here it means, you know, someone with the same interests, even someone with the same Buddhist interest, even someone with the same meditation interest. I think what it means is someone who's not relating to us as who we were, yeah, but someone who is relating to us as to who we're becoming, yeah. I think that's the companion suited to our mind. I think it must be. It really, yeah, that's the only real friend, you know. The only real friend is someone who wants us to grow, even if that is a threat to them, you know, materially or otherwise, who won't stand in our way of growth. That's the companion suited to our mind. That's the companion who's suited to a mind of growth, yeah? And that's what I wanted to say about, you know, this centre, this Brixton Centre, you know, any Buddhist centre, especially for those of you new to the centre. I hope you've already experienced that what's happening here isn't just about like passing on skills. It isn't just about saying, well, here we are, we want to teach you to meditate, then off you go, yeah? We are going to teach you to meditate, and we are going to say off you go and try that. But it's not really about that, yeah? It's not really about just giving you a bunch of things that you then take away like any other night class or something. It's about building a community of people who support each other to move forward, yeah? It's a community of people who are supporting each other to move forward. And we need that, yeah? I think it can be quite easy to think we don't need that, or we don't need other people, but actually, well, I think we do. You know, it'd be interesting to explore that for yourself. We need that. We won't get very far on our own. We need that. We need that support of other people. And also, we need to be that, yeah? We need it for ourselves, and we need to be that for others. We need to be that companion suited to the mind, yeah, to the mind of growth. That's what helps us grow. It's a sort of mutual responsiveness, yeah. So the whole thing then grows, yeah. The community that we're building here, the Sangha that we're building here, is a community of growth. It's nothing but that, yeah. If it's not that, then it's not doing what it's it's not really fulfilling its purpose. But it is doing that, yeah. It's that support of growth, yeah. So let's go back to the poem. So I'm going on to the second verse now, which I'll just read again. I want to break through, shatter time and space, cut up the void with a knife, pitch the stars from their place, nor shrink back when, lidded with darkness, the eye of reality opens and blinds me, blue as the sky. Okay, so it's quite a change of tone actually. You've still got this, you've still got this urgency, this want to break out or want to break through. But whereas in the first verse, let's see, so it's in the realm of it's in the realm of time and space. It's breaking, it's breaking out of habit. It's like breaking out of convention. And in the second verse, you're breaking into another dimension altogether. Yeah, it's breaking into another dimension. So it's even more radical. And this second verse is really getting to the heart of what makes Buddhism, yeah? What makes Buddhism and not anything else. So basically, from the Buddhist point of view, all of us, while we're unenlightened, the unenlightened state consists on being locked into a belief. Now, I say belief, but this belief is something that's pre-conscious, It's not even unconscious, it's pre-conscious, so we don't know we're doing it. It's a belief we don't even know we've got, So, but this pre-conscious belief is that there's a really existing me, so walking around in a really existing world, and that they're separate, So that's the pre-conscious belief that we're all locked into, and that's what unenlightenment consists of. And all our suffering comes from this, It's not our fault, so it's not that we're to be blamed for this, but it causes all our suffering, because as soon as you've got a real me, you have to defend it, You have to defend it. You've almost got no option, So you've made this fundamental mistake. We've all made it. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about delusion in Buddhism. If you've heard of this great trio of greed, hatred and delusion, delusion is the most fundamental. That's our fundamental delusion. And then greed and hatred follow automatically. You've got to then defend this real me. In other words, you've got to keep out everything that's a threat, draw in everything that you think will enhance this real me, but it's all based on a mistake, and because we're all doing that all the time. We're all doing this defending, and it's exhausting, It's exhausting doing all this defending, and also it's doomed to failure, It's doomed to failure because it's not based on reality. It's based on this delusion in the first place. So this was the great, discovery of the Buddha, that it doesn't have to be like this, It doesn't have to be like this. It's an immense, to say it's an important discovery just isn't even enough. It's like a completely world-shattering discovery, because up until that point, nobody knew it was possible to be a human being without this fundamental delusion. Up until that point, that was just the same thing. It was locked in together. Human being meant having this delusion, but without you didn't know you had it, you didn't know you had it. And the best analogy that I always think about when I think about this is before anybody knew you could split the atom, Before anybody knew you could split the atom, everybody thought that was the smallest thing there was the nucleus of an atom. And there's these protons and neutrons, which we now know are bound together by this strong nuclear force. But nobody knew that could be split apart. And then that was discovered, it could be split apart. And, well, for good and ill, obviously. But we don't need to worry about that just now. What we need to, in the analogy, what I like about it is when it's split apart, immense energy is released. That's what nuclear fission is. It's that immense energy. And it's a chain reaction. It just keeps going, yeah? So I think that's quite a good analogy for what the Buddha discovered, that that a human mind doesn't have to be bound to that delusion, that actually can be freed, and then tremendous energy would be released. And it would be a chain reaction of energy, positivity, connection. There'd be nothing to defend anymore. So there'd be no need for greed and hatred, because there'd be nothing to defend. There would just be complete connection, which, obviously would be amazing, actually. And maybe we've had little glimpses of that, glimpses. We've probably not even had glimpses, but we might have had glimpses of glimpses when you sort of positively forget to be a me, like moments of great beauty, moments of deep connection, moments of generosity. You might get a glimpse of, it could be like this, it could be like this. So all our suffering is because of this, according to the Buddha. And the Buddha's Dharma is the only thing that goes to the heart of the matter. Nothing else goes that deep. Whatever other kinds of inner work we might do, nothing else can go that deep, because nothing else acknowledges the problem in the first place. Only the Dharma acknowledges that problem and gives us a way out of that, yeah? And gives us a way out. And the way out is active. That's why I really like this poem, actually. The poem's very active, yeah? In its attitude. I want to break out. I want to break free. In other words, rather than kind of going about locked into this greed, hatred and delusion, trying to exert control where, it's not possible, being a sort of walking, talking defence mechanism, which is basically what we are, that's a very vulnerable position to be in, because sooner or later, usually sooner, reality is going to break in, isn't it? We're going to, lose the dream job, lose the dream partner, people will die around us, we'll suddenly get ill, reality will break in all the time, and it'll be a shock, it'll be a shock to us. Whereas the attitude of this poem is active, rather than waiting for reality to break in, as it were. It's saying, take the initiative, like break out, yeah? Break out. And how to do this on this deeper level. So we've talked about habit. We've talked about breaking out of habit. I don't want to lose that. We've talked about breaking out of the constant need for approval. This takes it even more radically. And what it means is, what it would mean if you were to practice like this, would be practicing seeing those moments when our attachments, for example, our expectations are challenged, seeing them not as annoying things or painful things that have just happened, even if they are annoying and painful. I'm not saying don't feel the pain and don't feel the annoyance, but actually learn to say, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to see the nature of things. This is the truth. This is the truth. This isn't some sort of weird aberration that's happened to the world the way I thought it should be organised. This is the truth. Now, This is quite an art to do this, but we can practice it. And this is going to hopefully join up what we've been learning in the first 2 weeks of this challenge, is that to do this properly, well, you need to be integrated to do this. You need to have enough of a sense of being a whole person to do this more deep work. But perhaps even more importantly, you need positive emotion because you can't do this in a cold way, yeah? You can't just, you don't want to just be going around in a cold way going, this is the truth, like some sort of robot or something, I don't know. You've got to somehow at the same time, like completely feel the pain, even the devastation that a huge loss might bring you. You're not trying to alienate yourself from that. You feel that fully, but at the same time, you learn to see that this is true. Why did I think it would be anything different than this, you know? Because that thinking it would be anything different is adding an extra layer of pain. Do you see what I mean? If you feel the universe has got something in for you, that's an extra layer of pain. If you feel that, why me? Why has this happened? Then that's an extra layer of pain. You're trying to, in a non-alienated way, more and more align oneself with the reality of things, yeah? So that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about, rather than passively waiting for reality to break in on us, to take a more active approach, and the approach of more initiative and like practice sort of for reality, with reality, practice to align ourselves with reality, yeah? Rather than imagining we have got really any control. I mean, at the end of the day, we haven't really got any control. We've got control, or we've got initiative in relation to our own mental states and responses, but we really haven't got any control of what happens sort of out there, as it were. So really watch for this, you know, watch for tendencies to blame, you know, to think, whose fault is it? Is it their fault? Is it my fault? It must be somebody's fault. Watch for tendencies to blame. Watch for tendencies to think, oh, if we just try really, really hard, we can sort of solve it all. Watch for that and try more align ourselves with reality, which means seeing those times when our expectations are challenged, our attachments are challenged. See the glimpse of opportunity in that, yeah? See the glimpse of opportunity in that. If we resist that, if we keep trying to just fix it and put it back together again, we're actually, it's not just that that's painful because it doesn't work, but we won't experience the full potential of awareness, even the full implication of awareness. We've got this like massive gift of awareness, of human awareness, of human responsiveness that, you know, can respond to truth and beauty and goodness when we encounter it. We've got that, but we close it down all the time. Yeah, we close it down all the time. So we're trying to open it up. Yeah, and in the poem, there's quite a bit of imagery in the poem I don't like fully understand. The cut up the void with a knife and so on. Quite a mysterious way of talking. But you've got this very clear blue as the sky. Yeah, blue as the sky in the poem. So the blue sky is very, very traditional image for reality itself. Very potent image for reality itself. It's not the literal blue sky when we talk about the blue sky here. It's like an endless blue sky. It's a blue sky without beginning or end. It's representing the principle of that there's nothing that's not possible. Yeah, it's an openness. Yeah, it's something. It's representing the limitlessness. Yeah, and the blue sky is blinding us. Which again is a very strong image. So the fact that it's blinding us means it must be luminous, it must be full of light to blind us. Yeah, so the blue sky is luminous, it's shining with reality. So I'm going to now bring us to an image which is not in the poem but is on the shrine. And it's the image of the dakini. She might be a little bit too small to see, but you can come forward at the end and look. So I'll describe her to you. So the image is the dakini. We've got the Buddha on the shrine. We've got the archetypal Buddha of beauty, like the Sambhava on the shrine. And then we've got the dakini, who is another enlightened figure. And here are some things, if you can see her, or even if you can't, I'll describe her, that you'll immediately notice about the figure of the dakini. She's bright red, yeah, she's bright red. So that is, red, of course, is the colour of love, of passion. And it really harks back to what we're saying in the first half about this full-bloodedness, being fully behind ourselves, full-bodiedness, yeah, this, the energy that can like batter down that door, the door of habit, yeah. So she's red, she's full-blooded, she's dancing, she's in motion, yeah, so she's dancing freely, she's in motion. She's naked, yeah, so she's got nothing to hide. That harks back to, what we were saying in the first half about our tendency to, want approval, want people to like us, want to be seen to be doing the right thing, or to be seen to be doing the wrong thing, which is the same thing. She's got none of that. She's just completely free. She's just completely naked, so she's got nothing to defend. She's got nothing, she's completely strong in that nakedness. Do you see what I mean? Because she doesn't care what people think. She's completely gone beyond convention. She's not even unconventional. She's beyond convention. So nothing can touch her in a way, if you see what I mean. No one, she's got nothing to be embarrassed about or ashamed about, or she's never going to feel she's made a mistake or anything like that. She's just free, yeah? That's what this nakedness is representing. She's ecstatic, an outpouring of ecstatic energy. She's wearing a garland of skulls. You can see that garland of skulls of representing all the old discarded selves, all the old habitual ways of being. She's adorned by them, she's conquered them. They are no longer in charge of her. So very, 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 very potent image, and there's many more attributes that I haven't even said. But what I wanted to draw out is, well, anyone might think, oh, that's the image of the seated Buddha, sitting very still and very poised. and very calm and touching the earth and rooted in the earth, and the image of the dakini, you might look at them and think, well, they're completely different, yeah? They're completely different. What have they even got to do with each other? What have they even to do with each other? And in a sense they're different, but actually they're not really different. Actually, I don't even really think they are in any sense different. What I want to say to you is the image of the dakini and the image of the Buddha are much more the same than they're different. Even you could say they're completely the same image, but just looked at from a different point of view. Perhaps you could think of it as the dakini is the mind of the Buddha, yeah? You could say, okay, the Buddha's sitting there, outwardly looking very still and poised, and the mind of the Buddha is that dakini, yeah? Completely free, completely unbounded, completely naked, completely red, completely full-blooded, free to move in any direction and free to be still, not compelled to move in any direction, completely free to be still. It's the mind of the Buddha is a new mind, yeah? A bit like what I was, trying to evoke by that metaphor of splitting the atom. It's a new mind, and that dakini represents the new mind of the Buddha. And that can be our mind, yeah? That can be our mind if we practice these things, and I'm including myself in this, that we've been talking about. Practice not acting habitually, but finding ways to be creative, not just doing the same old thing again and again and digging ruts for ourselves, but actually daring to step out of that and be creative, risking to step out of that, seeking friends and companions that are suited to our minds, that will help us in that, and that help might be in different ways. It might be supportive help, but it might be challenging help. It might be they're helping us by not allowing us to settle down in our old patterns, or maybe they're even pointing them out to us. So if we practice like that, if we practice going on retreat, going on solitary retreat, so that we actually start to free ourselves from that need for approval, for that need to be, in a sense, conventional. Even if we think of ourselves, nobody ever thinks of themselves as conventional, probably, really. We all like to think we're like wonderful and original, but actually we mostly are bound by what people think of us. But finding deep ways to free ourselves from that. And then if we even more radically see the moments when our attachments and expectations are challenged as opportunities, even I find saying that to myself, sometimes I do that out loud, this is an opportunity. Yeah, when somebody doesn't do what I want and I'm annoyed and reacting, I've tried to train myself to say, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to be free, actually. If we train ourselves like that, then we can have the mind of that dakini. We can have the mind of that dakini.